Welcome to the iRogya Wellness Podcast, your quick guide to a healthier life. In each episode, we'll explore practical tips and insights to help you on your journey to optimal health and well-being. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really zeroing in on the tech behind the air we breathe inside our homes.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
It really is. And lots of you are probably looking at air purifiers, right? Trying to figure out what actually works.
For sure. There's so much out there.
So we've dug into the details on the Puritii Multi-Effect Air Purifier. We want to see how its technology stacks up against, other options available to you.
Right. Our goal today is really to cut through some of the noise, the marketing speak, and understand the core technology, what's actually making the air cleaner.
Exactly. We want to equip you with a clearer picture of Puritii's approach and how it differs, technologically speaking, from competitors like, say, Dyson or Honeywell.
Sounds good. It's easy to get lost in the specs otherwise.
Okay, so let's jump right in. The Puritii system. What's going on inside this thing? Our sources point to a pretty complex setup.
They really do. I mean, the first thing that stands out is the number of filtration stages. It uses 11 stages.
11?
Yeah, 11. Think about like a gauntlet for airborne contaminants. It starts off tackling the larger stuff first, dust and hair. There are several pre-filters for that, a polymesh, then a macro X15, a couple of macro X10s.
So clearing the big particles.
Exactly. That helps the later, finer filters last longer and work better. After those, it moves to a macro X10 pre-HEPA filter, then the main HEPA type filter, which is really crucial.
Okay.
Then you got activated carbon, zeolite, potassium permanganate for gases and odors, a post-VOC diffuser, and finally an ionization stage.
Phew. Okay, so 11 stages. The basic idea then is catching a really, really wide range of pollutants, from big to microscopic.
That's precisely it. That whole layered system is designed to handle dust, pollen, smoke, gases, odors, pretty much the gamut of indoor air issues.
Let's talk about that HEPA filter. We hear HEPA a lot. What's special about the one in the Puritii, according to what we've seen?
Well, the key spec here is its efficiency. This HEPA filter is rated to capture 99.99% of particles down to 0.03 microns.
0.03 microns. That sounds incredibly small. What does that actually mean in practice? What kind of things are that size?
It's tiny, yeah. We're talking about things like fine dust you can't see, mold spores, smoke particles, pet dander, and even many bacteria and viruses that just float around.
Okay, so really microscopic stuff that can affect breathing.
Definitely. And the sources also mentioned its structure. It's pleated, like an accordion, basically. That design maximizes the filter's surface area within the unit, so it can trap more particles efficiently without, totally blocking the airflow.
Gotcha. So it catches the tiny particles. But what about the invisible stuff, like smells from cooking or chemical fumes from new furniture, or VOCs, right?
Right. Volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and general odors. That's where the activated carbon filter comes in. It's a really important stage for that.
How does activated carbon work?
Think of it like a super sponge for gases and odors. Activated carbon is incredibly porous. It has a massive internal surface area, and it uses a process called adsorption, with a D, to trap gas molecules.
Adsorption, okay.
So it's great for things like VOCs from cleaning supplies or paint, cigarette smoke, cooking fumes, even things like formaldehyde and benzene that can off-gas from household items.
Things you definitely don't want lingering in the air.
Exactly. So that carbon stage specifically targets those gaseous pollutants.
Okay, now the Puritii's also has some smart features mentioned. There's an AI mode. What does that do?
Yeah, the AI mode's pretty neat. The purifier has smart sensors built in that are constantly sampling the air.
Checking the quality.
Right. They're monitoring pollutant levels in real time. If they detect a spike in, say, dust or VOCs, the AI automatically adjusts the fan speed.
So it ramps up when needed.
Precisely. It cleans more aggressively when the air quality dips, and then it can slow down when things are clear. So you get optimal cleaning without having to guess, and it helps with energy efficiency too by not just running full blast all the time.
Makes sense. And what about this negative ion mode? That sounds like it's actively changing the air somehow.
It is. The negative ion mode releases a very high concentration of negative ions. The source mentions 23.6 million per cubic centimeter.
And what do these ions do?
Well, the idea is that these negatively charged ions attach to positively charged airborne particles, things like dust, pollen, smoke particles.
Okay.
When they attach, the particles become heavier and tend to fall out of the breathing zone onto surfaces. It kind of helps clear the air And some people associate it with that fresh feeling after a thunderstorm, which naturally produces negative ions.
Interesting, like an electronic air freshener almost, but working on the particles themselves?
Sort of, yeah. It's about removing them from the air you're actively breathing.
You mentioned those smart sensors feeding the AI. What are they actually sensing? Is it just dust?
No, it's more comprehensive. Think of them as the purifier's nose and eyes. They're continuously monitoring for various pollutants and allergens, detecting changes in levels. So fine particles, VOCs.
So they pick up different kinds of pollution.
Right. And that continuous feedback lets the purifier react dynamically. If you start cooking, or maybe stir up dust, it senses that change and adjusts accordingly to maintain good air quality.
And can we see what the sensors are detecting? Does it tell us anything on the unit itself?
Yeah, it gives you some direct feedback. There's a PM2.5 digital display. PM2.5 refers to those really fine particles, 2.5 micrometers or smaller, which are a big health concern.
So you get an actual number.
You get a real-time number, yeah. There's also a TVOC display that's total volatile organic compounds, which uses a simple 5-level bar graph, quick visual check.
Okay.
And it also shows the current room temperature and humidity. So you get a decent snapshot of your indoor environment right there on the unit.
Okay, that paints a pretty clear picture of the Puritii's internal tech. So now the big question, how does all this compare? When you put it side by side with well-known brands like Dyson or Honeywell?
Right, that's really where the rubber meets the road for a lot of people. And while all these brands aim to clean the air, their approaches and capabilities do differ.
So where are the key differences? Filtration, maybe?
Filtration efficiency is a big one. As we said, Puritii claims that 99.99% capture rate for particles down to 0.03 microns.
Okay. And Dyson?
Dyson often cites 99.97%. Now that sounds very close, but the size of particle they're targeting for that percentage can sometimes vary between models. And that 0.03 micron level Puritii specifies is really, really fine particle territory.
And Honeywell?
Honeywell generally advertises around 99% efficiency for their HEPA filters. Again, sounds high, but that difference, especially when you're talking about those ultrafine 0.03 micron particles viruses, some bacteria, ultrafine dust, that small percentage difference can actually mean capturing significantly more of those potentially harmful pollutants.
So Puritii seems to be aiming for the smallest particles with the highest efficiency rating we've seen mentioned.
Based on these specs, yes.
What about those gases and smells? You mentioned the activated carbon in Puritii. How did the others compare there?
That's another really key difference, actually. Puritii makes a point of including that dedicated activated carbon filter along with zeolite and potassium permanganate as standard in its multi-stage system for broad gas and odor removal.
And with Dyson and Honeywell?
It's more variable. Some of their models definitely have activated carbon, but it's not always a given across their entire range. And the amount or type of carbon might differ, which impacts how effectively they handle different kinds of gases or how long that effectiveness lasts.
So you might get HEPA filtration, but not necessarily robust gas filtration with every model from those brands.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
You really have to check the specific model's features list to see if it includes a substantial carbon filter stage.
And particle size capture, just to recap, Puritii at 0.03 microns.
Right. For Dyson and Honeywell, again, it can vary. Some models might focus more on larger allergens like pollen and dust mites, hitting maybe 0.1 or 0.3 microns, while their higher-end units might get closer to Puritii's level. It's not always consistent across the board.
Okay. So if you were to sum up the main technological standouts for Puritii compared to these others, what would they be?
Well, connecting the dots, it seems to be the combination of factors. First, that very high-efficiency HEPA, aiming for those ultrafine 0.03 micron particles. Second, the consistent inclusion of a seemingly comprehensive activated carbon stage for gases and odors. And third, the addition of that negative ionization technology.
Right, the ionization.
The sources suggest this isn't just about passive filtering. The ionization is presented as actively helping to neutralize certain airborne things like some viruses and bacteria. That active component is less common in many standard Dyson or Honeywell models.
So kind of a multi-pronged attack. Attract the particles, absorb the gases, and actively neutralize some things in the air.
That appears to be the technological strategy, yes, a more comprehensive approach.
Which sounds, well, impressive. But let's talk cost. Our sources are pretty clear that the Puritii comes with a significantly higher price tag.
That's definitely something you have to address. The upfront cost for a Puritii is substantially higher. Estimates we saw suggest it could be anywhere from like 4 to 20 times more expensive than some competitor models. We're talking potentially starting around $2,000. U.S.
Wow. Okay. That's a big difference.
It is, but the way the information frames it is often in terms of a long-term investment in, potentially better health outcomes due to that more thorough purification.
Okay. So positioning it as paying for more advanced tech for potentially greater benefit.
Kind of, yeah. And there's another factor mentioned, filter life. The replacement interval for Puritii filters is often cited as longer, maybe 6 to 12 months, compared to maybe 3 to 6 months for some filters in other brands. So while the initial cost is high, you might be replacing filters less often, which could impact the long-term running costs and also means less waste.
That's an interesting point. Fewer filter changes over time.
It's part of the overall calculation you need to make.
So it really comes down to weighing that initial investment against the level of technology offered and those potential longer-term factors like filter life and, well, the value you place on that level of air cleaning.
Exactly. It depends on your priorities, your budget, and what specific air quality issues you're most concerned about tackling in your home.
Thinking about those potential benefits then, who might see the biggest advantage from this kind of comprehensive technology Puritii offers?
Well, the information strongly points towards individuals with respiratory issues. Think asthma, COPD, severe allergies.
Why them specifically?
Because removing that broad range of triggers, the fine dust mites, pet dander, pollen, mold spores, bacteria, viruses, even tiny particles from exhaust fumes that sneak indoors, can make a real difference. That 0.03 micron capture is particularly relevant there, as those ultrafine particles can get deep into the lungs and cause problems.
Right, hitting the smallest irritants. What about for people who don't have specific respiratory conditions? Any benefits for general well-being?
There's suggestion of that too. For instance, potentially improve sleep quality, because some pollutants can actually disrupt sleep patterns.
Okay.
There's also talk of potentially reduced stress levels, maybe just from the peace of mind of cleaner air, or perhaps a more direct physiological effect, and even potentially increased productivity.
How so?
By reducing exposure to irritants that might cause fatigue or that kind of brain fog. Cleaner air might help with focus and cognitive function. It's more about overall quality of life.
Makes sense. And odors. We keep coming back to them, but they're a common annoyance. That multi-stage system should be pretty good at that, right?
Absolutely. That combination, especially with the activated carbon, zeolite, and permanganate, is specifically designed to target and neutralize a wide range of household odors. Things like cigarette smoke, cooking smells, pet odors. Those are explicitly mentioned as things it's effective against.
Good to know. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. If we boil it down, what are the core technological strengths of the Puritii Multi-Effect Air Purifier based on our deep dive?
Okay, in a nutshell. 1, the comprehensive 11-stage filtration. 2, the very high-efficiency HEPA-type filter, targeting those tiny 0.03 micron particles. 3, the dedicated, robust, activated carbon stage for gases and odors. 4, the AI mode for smart automatic adjustments based on real-time air quality. And 5, the negative ion technology aimed at actively reducing certain airborne contaminants.
And those features together are what really set it apart from, say, typical Dyson or Honeywell offerings.
That seems to be the case. The main distinctions appear to be that finer particle capture, the 0.03 micron level, the consistent inclusion of a strong gas-to filtration system, and that active ionization component. These aren't always standard across the board with the other brands we compared.
Got it. And while acknowledging that significant initial cost.
Right. The trade-off is presented as choosing a potentially more advanced, thorough purification technology, possibly for greater long-term health and well-being benefits, and maybe some savings down the line from longer filter life.
This has been really helpful, I think, in understanding what's actually in the box and how it works. It gives you, the listener, a much better framework for thinking about air purifiers and what matters most for your own space.
Definitely. And maybe that leads us to our final thought for you today. As you think about the invisible world of stuff floating in your air, how does understanding the technology behind purification change how you view your indoor environment? Reflecting on what we've discussed, what aspects of air quality and what technological features are actually most important to you?
Thanks for tuning in to the iRogaia Wellness Podcast. Remember, small steps lead to big changes. If you're curious about the products we mentioned today, you can find them all at irogaia.com. That's irogaia.com. And hey, use the code iRogaia15 at checkout for a 15% off discount. Please note that the code is not applicable for Europe, some parts of the Middle East, and South Africa. Until next time, Keep taking those steps towards a healthier you.